Hello, welcome to the Tutors of Life podcast, where we research life so you don't have to. Episode 277. This is your host, Shaun Tutor.
And this is Sam. And this is a Tutor episode where we try to teach you something new.
And if you want to see the cutest thing, if you go on YouTube and watch this, Mimi is laying in my lap, which has never happened before.
No.
And she wanted to.
Yeah. He literally picked her up and put her in his lap, and she just took it. She's asleep, by the way. She's out.
Incredible.
It's a little windy today here in Eau Claire, and Mimi doesn't like the wind. So you might hear some big wind gusts every once in a while. Mimi might panic, so we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, the video should be up Tuesday.
Cool. I can't stop smiling. It makes me so happy.
You're so happy.
She's so cute.
She's really cute.
Cool, fun. What are we chatting about?
This is your topic.
All right, here we go. We are going to discuss essentially your relationship with past, present, future.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of, yes, living in the present, right? Living in the present is the most important. But by living in the present, you have to take your lessons from the past with a roadmap going forward so that you're not replicating similar mistakes.
Because history does repeat itself.
Not only does history repeat itself, people continue to do the same things, even if those things are detrimental, because of comfort. And so, if you know it's bad for you to, let's say, have a beer every night, right? It's bad for you to have a beer every night, but it's familiar and you're comfortable doing it, you're going to keep doing that forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking, the things you've learned and implementing it. Even if that change is scary, even if the change is scary, implementing it for the betterment of the future. But if all you do is live in the present, you just keep repeating the same shit, good or bad, over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
That's why so many people will be so many people will talk about how, oh, just like that, 5 years was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that, 5 years was gone. And they're we don't seem to have made any progress in 5 years. And it's yeah, because you didn't think about your past and the things you did or didn't do or missed out on.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't make a roadmap for the future. And so all you did the whole time was just spin your wheels, doing the same exact thing over and over, expecting a different you're expecting you're going to save for retirement, even though you're not saving for retirement. You think you're going to be better off.
Right.
Look at the people who did the, look at the crypto run. There's been 4 different, big crypto runs or something like that, 5 years, whatever. There's been big crypto runs. If you look on that, dude, and you say to yourself, oh, I can't believe I missed out on that. I should have known. I should have done better. Okay, well, guess what? Right now we're kind of at a peak. But what happens after a peak? It always crashes.
Mm-hmm.
It always does. And what happens after it crashes? Year to 2 years later, it hits a high again. And so, and they go in I think it's 5-year cycles it goes. Okay, well, on the next down run, be the fucking person that you always talk about. That you're oh, I should have known better. Oh, lucky them. Be that person.
Mm-hmm.
Do that thing. But what it involves, and this is what we want to chat about today, everything involves learning.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter how much you learn. If you don't, it doesn't matter how much you learn. It doesn't matter how much education you have. It doesn't matter the knowledge you have. If you do not implement it, none of it matters. Okay, so how do we get knowledge?
We read, we learn, we listen.
So knowledge, we can either read, learn, listen, whatever. But the biggest way is through action.
Yeah.
And so if we're doing things and we're learning as we go, what happens? We win some and we lose some.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times we lose some. Okay? Well, if we look at that in the current situation and we reflect, okay, where were my wins? Okay, I'm going to make sure when I need wins, I'm going to do those things again. Where did I lose? Well, I lost here and here. Okay, well, I know that method gets me a loss. I don't necessarily know the method that gets me a win, but I'm at least going to try a different path. And so you can see it's like doing a crossword or a Sudoku. Like you see this number or word or letter does not fit there. Okay, we clearly know that that's not going to go there. Well, now we've got however many options to go from. We're not just going to stick a fucking random letter or number in that hole. We're going to go through and be like, oh, well, we already are using 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 9. Well, maybe I need to use the fucking 3.
Right.
You know, like you can narrow it down to 3 options. And a lot of it's all about taking that and taking your 3 options, laying your 3 options out and going, which one do I actually think is going to work the best with the skill set and knowledge I currently have? And so maybe you have to learn more. Maybe you got to add another skill set or something to actually make that thing come to fruition. But if you take that lesson and now you're in your present and you're looking at present, you're like, okay, how can I turn that into a win? Now you look forward 5 years. Well, where does this need to plug in to be a win? Okay, let's implement. And then you have to move forward, forgiving yourself for the past, not going, hey, you dumb fuck, you screwed up, and just thinking, okay, I know what I've learned. I figured out which path I'm going to try, and now I'm going to implement. And the big thing about it all is it's all trial and error. So by going through that motion, you have to reflect on the past. You have to forgive yourself for the past because it's gone. You can't live there, right? And we'll chat about living in the past in a minute. You're in your present. You're going, okay, cool, great. I want to go here. We're not living in the future. We're not going to live in the future and just think oh, down the road it's going to be great even though I'm not changing anything. It's not going to work. You look in the future where you're going. You come back to your process you decided to implement, and then you live in the present, implementing that process, consistently reviewing. Am I getting closer to where I want to be? If not, why? Do I need to add a little more time? Do I need to be more patient? Is the method shitty? Am I not actually putting in the effort I told myself I would put in? That's probably the most common. And then continue to implement based on your feedback you're getting. But if you're 6 months down the road and you're going, man, I'm not losing the 100 pounds I put on over the last fucking 15 years. Oh, okay, well, it took 15 years to put on. It's been 6 months. You've only lost 10 pounds and you've plateaued. Okay, maybe give it another 3 to 5 years. Keep going down the path. Keep doing the shit you wanted. You're just looking for a cop-out at this point because it doesn't work. So anyways, you guys, what do you got? Got something to add?
Yeah, just a couple things to add on to that. So there's this is why it's good to journal. Because you can write down how things are working or doing. Fitness journals are really helpful for people trying to lose weight. And,
yeah.
One good thing to keep track of for those especially is okay, I ate these foods and this is how I felt today. Or I did these workouts and this is how I felt today. Because then you can reflect and look back on those and be oh, when I had steak and rice, I felt really good. When I had McDonald's, I felt really gross. Yeah. So being able to write down a lot of those things, you can look back on and reflect and learn from them. There's been, Shaun and I have a couple different journals that we have, and one of them is life lessons or life reminders that we have. And we do forget about it quite often, but every once in a while we'll look at it and we're oh yeah, we forgot, that is something we told ourselves we weren't going to do anymore. And then we add on to it and whatever. So it's good to have those things to reflect on and look back on. to help you move forward.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, this podcast is, it's why it helps us gain knowledge. So, like, one thing that a lot of people say is if you want to learn something, you learn it. Like, so we read a book, we learn it, and then you teach it.
Right.
Because that helps it stick in your mind so much more. So that is why, like, Shaun and I like to do the podcast, because we do read a lot of personal development books. And this podcast is a way for us to teach it and, like, embrace it more in our lives as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So by, like, writing it down or having a thing you can go back and reflect on, we don't do this, but we should almost do something like this where you have to review that every, like, 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be like your normal journal. Your normal journal you wouldn't want to, but a decisions journal or something like that would be a good thing to review every 3 months to remind yourself, like, oh yeah, these are the things I learned. Keep on track. Because it's super easy.
Because constantly Shaun and I are going back and forth of, like the diesel truck is the best example right now. It's just 1 week it'll be like, no, we should keep this because, like, it'll be really helpful in the future. And then we're just like, 2 weeks later, we're like, no, maybe we should just get rid of it because it's not going to be helpful for, like, 5 years.
Right.
So, like, we go back and forth on a lot of things. Robin Road was a big one. We went back and forth on, like, whether to buy or to sell it. The Corvettes.
Jesus.
Even this house. A month ago, I told Shaun, like, well, you know, it wouldn't be the end of the world if we stayed here for 5 years. And Shaun was like, we better not be here in 5 years. We better have land and be somewhere else in 5 years, blah, blah, blah. And then the other day, it was just like, yeah, you know, if, like, nothing comes up and we have to be here for 5 years, it's not the end of the world. So, I mean, it's stuff like that. Like, we should really write it down because then we can remember, okay, what was our reasoning why we wanted to stay here for 5 years? And then reflect on that when we are like, okay, why shouldn't we stay here for 5 years?
Yeah, because the biggest thing is this. Like, when you look at the things you've done in the past, you typically, 2 things happen. One, at least when I think about, like, people and like, things I did in the past, I always look at, like, the positives of it, right? When I look back on the past, I rarely ever look at negatives. I always think of, like, the highlight positives. Maybe that's just me. But there's things in the past that I'm like, I need to remember the lessons I learned. Like, oh, that was so fun. Why did I quit doing that? Right? Like, different types of work, like different people I've worked with, different types of work. Like, oh, I had so much fun doing that. Why did I quit that? Oh, well, I quit working at the machine shop because I decided to focus on my own business. Crazy, right?
Yeah. As humans, we, our minds, like, hold on to the positive memories better than the negative ones. So think back to high school.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
No bad times, dude. I didn't have bad times. I only had good times.
100%.
Did I even think of fucking, when I think back on, like, basic training or the military, I almost only think about the good shit. And then I'm like, wait a second, dumbass. That was not fun. It was dumb.
Yeah. As humans, our minds focus on the positive, or, like, hold those memories better than the negative ones.
So crazy.
Which is why, like, it's easy for people to live in the past.
Oh, that makes sense.
We could segue.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So to continue off of that, it's good to look on the past and reflect on it, but you have to make sure you're not living in the past. And it's hard because, right, we do focus on those positive memories and want to relive all those positive things. So naturally, you want to just keep reliving it. And, like, I think one of the best examples is we all remember partying and having a blast drinking when we were in our early 20s and how much fun it was and all this stuff. But you never really think about, like, the negatives of it. Like, well, now you get really bad hangovers from it. 2, it's not good for your body. And 3, like, think of all the stupid decisions you probably made but forgot about.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And even to think of, like, looking back on it now, I feel so bad for, because I would go out and party every Friday and Saturday night. Just about every Friday and Saturday night. Which was fine. But most of the time I worked every Saturday. At the mall. Either at the candle store or the children's place. And there's like times now, like, you hang out with people that you know went out the night before and they just reek of alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think about it, I'm like, fuck, dude. My, like, bosses had to hate me because I probably just reeked of alcohol every Saturday and Sunday when I went into work.
100%.
And, like, so it's thinking back on, like, those parts, too, that, like, nobody ever told me that. But, like, thinking back on it, I'm like, man, like, I was a piece of shit when I did that.
Sure, yep.
So it's like learning from it. Like, yes, I can think back and remember all the fun times and whatever. But then instead of living in it and repeating those actions now, I also can think about, like, some of the things I've learned from that. So not being a piece of shit to my employers, which I guess is ourselves now, but how much better it is for, like, my mind and, like, my work life to not be drinking every Friday and Saturday.
Yeah. That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. It's good to think about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to think about it to not continue to do it. And sometimes reminisce, sure. But the people that live in their past, that are like, dude, I just think of some people I know who still talk about football, about high school football. I'm like, bro, what do you mean you're talking about high school? What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. What?
Like, because we reminisce on the past when we're, like, with, like, our cousins or my nieces and nephews, because they're going through it now. So, like, we can reminisce on it by, like, telling them, oh, when we were in high school, we did 100%. This. But it's not like you're hanging out with all your old high school friends and you guys are all just like, oh, yeah, bro, do you remember when I was the best quarterback and I threw that 50-yard touchdown for the win at the state championship game?
That doesn't even, yeah.
Anyways.
It's literally shit like that. Like, it's absolutely like you said. It's one thing, cousins, nieces, nephews, whatever, you're hanging out, chatting, going over that stuff. It's fun. It's stories. That's all, like, storytelling, right? That's fun. When you are with friends from high school or, like, other people who are in high school, or when they talk back on, like, even being in college and shit in college, whenever it's talked about as not a story and more about, like, oh, I missed that, I wish that was, like, now. Because I've heard people say, like, oh, man, I wish I was still in college. I wish I was still in high school. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's time. You're 30 years old, dude. Grow the fuck up. It's time to move on. It's one thing to tell a story. It's another thing to live in the past, wanting the past to be the present. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But a lot of people don't know how to move forward. They think about that stuff, but they don't reflect on that stuff.
Yeah.
They're just, like, living back there hoping for, essentially, their present isn't great. Their present situation isn't great. And instead of looking back and thinking of the good, great things, so maybe, like, someone looks back and thinks about football and how they love football. Okay, well, what about it did you love? Did you love the camaraderie? Did you love, like, the fitness of it? Okay, dog, go join a jiu-jitsu gym or some shit, right? Like, maybe you liked being coached or something. Okay, well, get a coach for your career or get a coach for in the gym, whatever it is, right? Look at, like, the things you liked about it. Well, okay, how could I make my future better by putting more of that shit in it? You know, because growing up, I loved lifting weights. I just like the camaraderie of, like, all the boys being together, training. But I like independent, like, skill development.
Yeah.
Which lifting has deteriorated so much over the years. At least, like, the normal, like, powerlifting, like bodybuilding scenes, at least in the areas, deteriorated so much. And it kind of led me into wanting people who are like more, they do more bonding, people who are more like a tight-knit group and like got into jiu-jitsu and stuff, because it's more, that is more of like a family style training and like, you know, everybody getting better than like fuck boys at the gym having to bukkake around a fucking calf machine. But so like, I know looking in the past what I like, and that's, I like that shit. I like the camaraderie, I like betterment, I like challenge, and so that's like what I'm gonna do. I probably wouldn't actually do that had there been like, had the same core lifting dudes continued through the whole thing, still training 5 o'clock every day, that whole thing. I probably wouldn't have ever went and did like jiu-jitsu or anything, because I never did it growing up. I always wanted to do like, I like the idea of wrestling. The guys wanted me to wrestle. I like the idea of like jiu-jitsu, because my cousin Shaun would do like fighting jiu-jitsu. I always thought that shit would be super cool. But I loved the camaraderie of the gym so much and like training with the guys. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to wrestle or go fight the same time I'd be lifting. Doesn't even make any sense. I love lifting with the guys. So I just lift with, well, not even the guys, it's just the team. I just like the team and lifting and doing that stuff. Had I started with like wrestling or fighting first, the gym probably would have meant nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's all where I like first built my rapport with people and shit, and through like that medium.
Yeah, it's definitely doing stuff like that, because I honestly, it took me a little bit to get into lifting, because it was so much of like, I had to push myself, and it's so independent based, because I was in so many groups. Right. Like everything I did was a big group or a team. So so then you're all in it together, right? Like you're all doing the same thing, pushing each other, whatever. So going to lifting, where it's like just you telling me what to do, but I have to push myself pretty much to do everything. Right. It was a huge change. But I do like the fact of just like, I always played sports. Always, until honestly I got into college. But I did marching band, which, I mean, it's not as much of a workout, obviously, as other things, but it still was something. And then I'm very, very thankful that Shaun got me into lifting, because it has been my new sport, basically. I mean, I don't compete, and I don't care to compete, but it just gives me something to work for every day. Right. A purpose. That's what it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. But so instead of people like taking that mindset and putting it into something for the future, and so you can live in the present and enjoy the present, you just live in the past, thinking about, you know, what used to be.
It's also like why it's so important to like not live in the past too, is because you have to think our bodies are forever changing. I mean, we peak in our 30s, 40s. Right. But most likely, like, you're probably never going to be as strong as you were in your 20s, because your bodies just can't recover as easily as you could.
For most people.
For most people, yes.
Yeah, bodybuilders, some bodybuilders peak in like their late 30s. Some powerlifters too. Yeah. That's just a lot of...
That's what I'm saying. The average human is going to peak probably in their early 30s. But, like... It just recovery in general, though, is insane in your early 20s compared to your 30s.
It's so much better.
So you got to keep that in mind, because you can't keep thinking back. Like, if you've always been into lifting, you can't keep living in the past of like, oh, well, in high school I could lift 500 pounds. I should still be able to lift 500 pounds, and then getting upset that your progress isn't where you want it to be. Like, you do have to keep in mind, like, your body isn't the same body as it was when you're in 20s.
Right. Well, a lot of the impact and stress and everything, you've built up a lot of scar tissue and a lot of like knots and imperfections and stuff. And so you need a lot more time to warm up to get everything, your joints and everything going, and your muscles warmed up to lift. And anyways, so by taking these lessons that we've learned, we are able to live in the present, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're looking at the future, there's a couple ways to like look at it, right? You want to look long picture, so far out. You want to look like, it's like the whole writing your obituary thing. Because writing an obituary, at least for me, will tell you the type of person you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can write out and see the type of person you want to be, then you can bring that back from like, so like writing an obituary that's going to happen in 50, 60, 70, 10, 20, 30, whatever years out, to identify the type of person you want to be and what you want to be known for. Then you can work back and come and bring it back to like a 10-year view, a 5-year, and then like bring it down to a 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then even from there, you can bring it down like a couple months.
Yeah.
So we know what we want from the business and from our life in like a year and a half, 2 years. We know what we want. We can look at the lessons we learned over the last 8 years, or over the last, like, 6, 7 years doing business stuff and whatever, and school and what we learned. And we can plug that in to where we want to go in, because it's all on the roadmap of getting us to where we want to be when we die.
Mm-hmm.
But so if we look at like our 5 and 10 year picture, we know that if we know where we want to be in a year and a half, 2 years. Okay, cool. We know right now if we push really hard, work most weekends and a lot of afternoons, it's going to be like a 2 to 3 month push of pretty much working the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But we know once that gets done, we'll be able to start doing a lot more, like, it's going to open us up to do a lot more work, income producing work for the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause it's a lot of catch up, a lot of setting some stuff in place, establishing roles, establishing responsibility, stuff like that. Then, okay, so a push, 2 to 3 month push, and then we'll be able to do more income generating things. And then we know from there, we can taper back the like really heavy push
Mm-hmm.
down to like 40 hours, 50 hours a week. And if we follow that for the next year and a half out from that, we will be where we want to be with the things in place in 2 years. Which will then allow us what our like plan is, and that's all on a stepping stone to where we want to be in 5 and 10 years, all on the road of the type person we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is a lot of people that just go through the motions, or they'll see us like working a lot and think like, oh, like, you know, people will say all the time, oh, you got to enjoy life. You got to enjoy life. Yes, thank you. I understand I have to enjoy life. But I don't enjoy life, and I've never been one to enjoy life when I know there's a fucking shitload of stuff to get done. Because I'm doing the thing and I'm mad at myself the whole time. I'm like, oh yeah, you're being a fucking idiot because you're out here wasting your damn time fucking off on a vacation when you could be pounding down work, so when you go on vacation in 6 months, you can actually relax and turn off and have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But people are so like, oh, live in the moment. Suck your own dick. And it's like, or set up your fucking goals so you can do a push, get the shit done so you can actually relax. Because we've got like 6 different, maybe more, vacations planned this year.
Mm-hmm.
But they ain't starting until probably May, like beginning of May.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just got to fucking drive. And we planned to start at end of March and realized it ain't happening by then.
No.
Just push it out another month and a half. And we know by the time that gets there, once it hits, dude, we're going to enjoy the summer. We're going to be going, relaxing, vacationing, everything. But guess what? We had to sacrifice 3 months for it.
Right. And it's just going to make it so much easier and better for us, because in those 3 months building up to it, like, we know we'll be able to put some like systems and processes in place. So like when we leave, we know the team will be fine without us for that week or a long weekend or whatever.
Yeah. Otherwise, what will happen? Shit's not going to get done on time. Customers aren't going to be happy. People are going to be calling us. All the shit, you know? Or we make it so when we're on vacation, we get to enjoy ourselves. And so, but that all, like, we wouldn't have done that 5 years ago. We wouldn't have even done that 3 years ago, probably. But it's all about learning from, like, previous things so we can implement now. And that's the most important thing is you can't just, like, hate to just keep beating the same dead horse over and over and over, but I want people to really understand. You can't just fucking live now thinking it's going to get better in the future without a plan.
Right.
You're just doing the same thing hoping for a different outcome, and it ain't going to fucking happen, dude.
Nope.
You're not going to get those abs by fucking drinking beers every night.
Nope.
You're going to... Go ahead.
And it's one of those things, too, that it's really helpful to reflect on the past because, like, we just saw it the other day. I had in one of my... She's cute.
She has her head on the corner of the nightstand.
Can't be comfy.
Can't be comfy.
Anyways, in one of my journals, I said, like, I want a 6-pack by summertime. And I wrote it in January. And I told Shaun, I was just like, dude, if I would have even attempted, I would be probably there by now.
Dude.
So it's, like, good to look back on those reflections because then you can be like, okay, back then I was just like, I have so far to go. But now I'm here, where if I would have just tried, I could have been there. So it's, like, good to, like, reflect on those things and be like, okay, well, that year didn't feel like it took that long, so I can start today, and in a year, I'll be where I want to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because you've, like, gotten better and better and better. If you truly want that, like, the 6-pack in 6 months, hey, that's tough. But had you, like...
attempted.
Yeah, had you actually attempted and really were disciplined with it, you'd have probably had a few. And by now you'd have a 6-pack. So, yeah, exactly right. By this time next year, you could have a 6-pack, but you got to be disciplined as fuck.
And it really helps, guys, like, for all of these things to, like, reflect on the past, live in the present, and to get to your future. Make sure to celebrate the small wins. Like, set up small goals for yourself because... when I wrote that a year ago, right, like, at the time when I wrote it, I was like, oh, yeah, getting a 6-pack. Like, that doesn't seem like that big of a goal or whatever. But then starting to work towards it, like, it was a lot bigger of a goal than I thought it was. And then because I didn't set up a smaller goal to get little wins, I just fell off. So now I can reflect on the past of doing that to be like, okay, so now my first goal is going to be to just stop eating sugar and maybe having alcohol once a month.
Right.
And then if I accomplish that for 1 month, I'm going to be feeling pretty good. And I bet you after that month, I'm going to see significant changes in my abs already just by doing that. And then I could even, like, throw in there, like, okay, I'm going to do abs 3 times a week for 5 minutes. And if I just keep track of that, if I do that after a month, I'm going to be like, look at this. I already did this for a month.
Right.
And if I keep taking pictures, then I can look back and see the differences. Because when we did 75 hard, you could see the differences very, very easily.
Oh, for sure. That right there is exactly... So when you actually do, like, little rewards, they've, like, done endless studies on this. If you actually give yourself a reward, you're, like, confirming and reassuring with yourself that was the right thing to do. You always want to keep having, so, like, you don't want to reach a goal without another goal. But if you're, like, 80% from your goal and you start setting the next goal, once you reach that goal, you celebrate. Because you have to, like, reassure yourself that what you did was right. And then you can keep going from there. So maybe the goal is, like, hey, if I can actually, like, when I get to the end of this, month and I haven't had any whatever, if I haven't had any sugar and I only have a beer once a month or whatever, when you reach that end, now you're adding something new to that. But to celebrate, you could go on like a little weekend getaway.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to...
Like get something you really wanted.
Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
yep. Because that was one thing, like, Kyle was like, hey, Shaun, you want to go build an AR? And I was like, yep. And he's like, okay, well, let's go build one this weekend. And I was like, no, dude, like... I was like, we should really wait to build one until we finish, like, Ryan's whole inside of his house.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that's done and we get paid for that, then let's go get the AR. But I don't want to just go get the AR without, like, actually accomplishing shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's got no weight to it at all. So, like, oh, yeah, we've got, like, our biggest customer job is completed. Getting paid for it this week. Okay, so let's go build an AR this weekend. Or, you know, next week, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you can't reward yourself for not doing anything. And so many people do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They always rewarding themselves for not doing shit. So.
I like it.
That's what I got, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I got anything else.
I got nothing.
All right, guys. Well, enjoy the present. Learn from the past.
Look towards the
Look
future.
towards the future. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Sweet. Catch you on the next one.
See ya.